And let's see, just a minute. Setting up. All right, and we should be good to go.
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the 4th annual Kwanzaa celebration presented by the Friends of the James Brown African American Room and the Newark Public Library. Tonight's virtual discussion will center on Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics. My name is Dale Colston, and I'm the principal librarian at the James Brown African American Room of the Newark Public Library. On behalf of our director, Jocelyn Bowling Dixon, and Board of Trustees President, Dr. Lauren Wells, we thank you all for joining us this evening. Fellow librarian Reggie Blanding and Diego Quintero, the library's IT department head, are providing technical assistance. Our embedded interpreter for the evening is Ms. Tabitha Lee. We thank them all. I would like to acknowledge the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape First Nations on which we are learning, laboring, and organizing today. We also recognize the devastation and continued legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, which contributed to present-day systemic racism and oppression. Our host for this evening is educator, author, publisher, and community activist, Dr. Anasa Ma'at, who is also the vice president of the library's Board of Trustees. Dr. Ma'at was born in Newark, New Jersey, and she graduated from Central High School, received her undergraduate degree from Montclair State University, and earned a doctorate from Rutgers University in New Brunswick. Dr. Ma'at retired from public education in 2000. She remains active in the city where she has served 2 terms as district leader and as a member of the city school board. After the passing of esteemed librarian James Brown in 1991, Dr. Ma'at saw the need to continue his rich legacy. She is the founder of the Friends of the James Brown African American Room at the Newark Public Library. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Anasa Ma'at.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Dale. Habari Gani. Habari Gani is the greeting that we use during the 7-day celebration of Kwanzaa. It means what's the news. And today the news is Ujamaa. Ujamaa is cooperative economics. So as Dale mentioned, this is Friends of J-Bar's 4th annual Kwanzaa. It's our first virtual Kwanzaa though, hopefully the last. But Friends of J-Bar has been very busy during this pandemic, helping the library create virtual programming for you. We need your continued support in our efforts. So I would like you all, when you get a chance to visit the library's website, learn how you can help us continue to keep you informed by becoming a friend of the James Brown African American Room, or making a donation, or paying dues of $75 annually to keep us keeping you informed. We're going to start tonight with our candle lighting ceremony. We're going to start by lighting a candle for the first day of Kwanzaa, Umoja, which means unity. I'm going to light the candle for unity. Here we go. Unity, a lot of people think it's just unity in the community, but unity starts in the family. If we have united families, they make strong communities. So we are going to work on that, not just during Kwanzaa, but all through the year. Our second candle is for the second day of Kwanzaa, which is Kuja Chakalia, long word. But Kuja Chakalia means self-determination. We are a determined people. We are going to we want to decide for ourselves what it is we want, and we want to do what it is we want to do in our communities to make the community stronger and better. So I'm going to light a candle now for Ujamaa. Kujichagulia. Sorry. Uh-oh. This candle doesn't want to light. Okay, and now I'm going to do a third candle, and that candle is for the third day of Kwanzaa, which was Ujamaa. Ujamaa means collective work and responsibility. We all have a job to do in order to make our community the best that it can be. So I'm just going to ask all of you to learn what your job is in the community and do it and help make our community stronger. Okay, now that was for, you go from one side to the other. This is the candle for Ujamaa. And now we're going to light today's candle, Ujamaa. Ujamaa is cooperative economics. Our cooperative economics is one of the categories that we need to do a lot of work on. Every now and then I see somebody post something on Facebook that says, next Thursday or next month, we're going to buy Black, everybody buy Black. But we need to practice Ujamaa all through the year. We need to buy Black, invest in Black businesses, and do whatever we need to do to make our community economically sound. So we have a panel tonight that's going to pick up where I just left off, and they are going to talk to you about cooperative economics. How many of you have asked me or others, like, how can you buy Black? Where are the Black supermarkets? Where are the Black businesses? Where are the Black banks? Well, I'm going to introduce you to the panel now, and hopefully they will answer those questions for you. Our first panelist is going to be Zanetta Glover. Zanetta has been in the insurance and finance business for close to 30 years now. In 2006, she opened her own State Farm agency. Her focus then and still remains to help the community accumulate and protect our assets in order to build wealth and pass it down to future generations. Zanetta currently works as a sales leader and consultant for State Farm. So we are going to, I'm sorry. I can't read this. I'm sorry. And our second panelist is going to be Willie Blalock. Or maybe since Kai is here, we'll make Kai our second panelist. And Kai Campbell, I know his name well. His father was once the superintendent of the Newark Public Schools. And Kai is a native Newarker. He is describes himself as an envisionary. Kai has he describes himself as an envisionary working in a distressed urban community, and he works in Newark. He is interested in the vertical development of the city. In 2014, he launched his first restaurant concept, Walla. Walla, some of you know, downtown Newark on Halsey Street, has been widely acclaimed in the state of New Jersey. He is now the proud owner of not just the Walla, but Braggman's Delicatessen. Braggman's Delicatessen was formerly a Jewish delicatessen, and Kai now owns that. And very soon, he will be coming out with the Yard. It's another restaurant concept that he's developing, and it will be housed in Military Park. They want me to share my screen. Oh, you can't see me? Let's see. Can I just do this? I'm sorry to do this.
Oh, no, you have two screens, Anasa. We can see you. The other one is probably Hadrian.
Okay, I don't know how to do this.
Anasa, we can see you. It's the
Okay.
other screen that they're probably looking at. That's probably Hadrian logged on your laptop.
Oh, okay. So should I just take this off?
No,
Sorry
no,
for
we can
the
see
interrupt-
you. You're
Is
okay.
it okay now?
Uh-huh.
Everything is okay? Good.
Can everybody else see it?
Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
All right. Our third panelist is Willie Blalock. Willie is the Senior Vice President and Market Manager for Industrial Bank. Industrial Bank is the only Black-owned bank in the New York metro area. Industrial Bank is a family-owned bank that's committed to providing loans and financial services to underserved communities like Newark. And so we are going to start off with Zanetta. And at the end of our panel discussion, there will be a short question and answer session that will be moderated by our principal librarian of the James Brown African American Room, Dale Colston. So
May I say one thing before we welcome Sister Glover? For our participants, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to have your questions answered by absolute experts. We have an entrepreneur, a woman in a man's world with her own business, and a financier. This is a wonderful opportunity. Please put your questions in the chat. You don't want to miss this chance to get right for 2021. Thank you. Sister Glover?
No pressure there, Dale. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for the Newark Library for continuing to support the community and learning more about Kwanzaa. So one of the questions posed to us as panelists is, how did you get into this entrepreneurial process? First and foremost, I was obviously in college. I was a Black Student Union president, and part of my responsibility was to talk about the Kwanzaa principles, and also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. We kind of implemented these things throughout my college years, and obviously looking at the entrepreneurial spirit part of it all and this whole economic development. I knew right away that I wanted to own my own business, and knew that right out of college. Thought I was going to own a gym one day, but I went into the insurance and financial industry, and as mentioned by Dr. Anasa Ma'at, I worked in the insurance and financial industry right out of college and built a career in that. And so one of my jobs previously to owning my own agency was consulting and helping at another company build businesses within the company. And at that point, I knew I had built enough experience to go in it for myself. And so one of the places I was offered out of the 13 locations of a State Farm agency was in Newark, New Jersey. And I decided at that point, with all my experience, that I was going to work in a community similar to what I grew up in. And so when you hear this concept and the importance of economic development and giving back to our community, I knew that part of my role was to kind of focus in on not just insurance, but we also do finances at State Farm. And so part of my goal was helping the community to understand building wealth from generation to generation and how important that is in talking about economic development. And so when I look at it, and my concern is always, especially in this day and time, we look at the importance of economic development, but it plays such a bigger role today in thinking about political influence coming from economic influence and social influence. Without that financial base, I think it's hard for us to understand, but I think today in this political climate, we look at what tone is set with those who have the money. And so those who have the money get to shape what happens to us politically, They get to shape what happens in terms of our image socially. And that's where we have to start to think about how important this economic development is. The next question we were asked to answer is, how do we finance the business? I have to say, you know, obviously saving has been a big part of one of my strategies from day one, but my first job, I had an African-American human resource rep who held me accountable. I walked through the door, first generation college student, and had a lot of debt going to college, coming out of college. And so just trying to figure that out. But he, from that moment, told me, you have a commitment to save. And he asked me to put away money for my retirement. And I was like, I don't have any money, I'm broke. I'm just out of college. And he was just like, I don't care how broke you are, you have $20 a paycheck. And it was like, I felt like my father was sitting on my shoulder telling me what to do. And then he got me to commit to $25 a paycheck. He wasn't gonna let me leave the room. This is at 21, 22 years old with a whole lot of debt and my first job out of college. But before I left that room, he said, by the way, I also have another expectation of you. Every raise you get, 50% also has to go to your savings. You weren't living with the money, so you can live without 50% of it, and I gave you 50% back. And that small little principle, you know, and every time I got a raise, I still felt like he was sitting on my shoulder no matter where he was. And by the time I got ready to finance this business, I had saved over $100,000 with just being disciplined. And then the other second thing, which I'm sure Reggie will talk about, Willie will talk about, is the importance of building your credit, you know, making sure that that's also a part of understanding economic development, is knowing how important credit is. One of the things I used to talk to customers about is understanding your credit score. You're paying a lot more for your goods and services without understanding that your credit determines that. That money could be utilized to help building wealth for other things that you want to do, but because you're paying, you know, some ridiculous 10 to 15% on a car loan, which is a depreciating asset, you could have utilized that money somewhere else. And so those were just some fundamental things that I did from the very beginning, not because I knew better, because somebody else knew better and they mentored me. And I think that that's the importance of listening to good financial advice when you don't have those tools. And I think that helped me to kind of just be prepared when the opportunity came. I took full advantage of it. I owned the State Farm agency you see on Broad Street for 13 and a half years. With mixed emotions, I gave the business up in March of this year, but the bigger goal was this sales leader position. What I thought about when building wealth, my new role is helping people own a State Farm agency today. And so I think back to when I first applied for this agency and I sat across from that panel, there were not enough minorities, there were women, but there were no African-American decision makers on that panel. And I felt like, you know what, I need to take this opportunity if I talk about building wealth. One of the wealthiest things that people do in success of wealth is owning your own business and owning your own home, and obviously saving and investing. And so if I could be on that other side of helping people make decisions of this opportunity, and there's a minority comes across, I want them to feel comfortable that there's somebody there understanding that this opportunity we don't take lightly and it's not always given to us, and that they feel comfortable that there's somebody there who's walked this mile and in their shoes, and this opportunity is just as well for them as anyone else that walks in the room. That's it. Kai?
Okay, so is it my turn to go, I believe? Hey, first off, I just want to thank Dr. Ma'at for allowing me to speak today, and, you know, in the spirit of Kwanzaa, and requesting me to be here with folks like Willie and Zanetta, with whom both of whom I've done business with. I mean, even before I started my own company, going back to, I know Willie was at City National Bank, and my grandparents were some of the founding depositors in that bank, having been entrepreneurs that have moved up, a part of the Great Migration, and moved up here And I'm just a part of that continuum. And it's very serendipitous that we're all on this panel today. So thank you, Dr. Ma'at, and everybody, of course, at the library, Dale and Reggie, whom I've gotten to know over the years as customers. So I appreciate y'all. Y'all are part of the reason why I'm here. So I'm very much appreciative and thankful to be here. So in terms of the questions that I guess were posed, basically, how I started the business. Again, a part of that continuum, my grandparents were entrepreneurs. My mother was an entrepreneur. And a part of that has always been this principle that we're actually celebrating, which is, is Ujamaa, or Cooperative Economics. It's one of those things that we practice as a part of our business philosophy that filters down to our staff, and is a part of the culture that we try to employ throughout all of the restaurants. So how I started was essentially, I was a student activist. I then started to work for the city of Newark under Mayor James, and then under Mayor Booker, doing economic redevelopment and economic development stuff. And a part of that was the analysis of our community, where I would try to get and steer business towards City National, which is now industrial. And Zanetta was actually, we were one of Zanetta's clients when we formed Economic Development Corporation. So that was how I got my start. And as part of my analysis of seeing, I was so tired of the entire world telling me that just because Black and brown folks are in this community, it wasn't a good idea to invest here, right? Which to me makes no sense at all, because I see our purchasing power. I see the way that we maneuver as a community, and I see that we have desires, and just like everybody else in the society, right? So when I left the city, I started my own company in 2011. And part of that was analyzing the landscape. City National was a client at the time, and we were doing some work and trying to do some stuff with City National, now industrial. I was buying a group of buildings actually from City National, and we decided to put this concept in to prove to people, like, when all of the franchises that are investing in places around our community, that we could be the hole in the donut that proves that, hey, we have power, that our dollar needs to be respected. Like everyone else's, and even in our philosophy, our dollar should be respected even more, because as we know, if you are Black or brown, or you're a woman, it takes us a lot more, and we have to be a lot better, and we have to work a lot harder and smarter to get that dollar more than other members of society, right? So that's how we got our start. And in 2014, we launched our first restaurant, Burger Walla, that Dr. Ma mentioned. We are proud to own, as Walla Food and Beverage Group. We now, of course, not everybody, some people know that we bought Braggman's Deli, which is one of the oldest restaurants in the city of Newark, a traditional Jewish style deli that was started in 1937, which is on Hawthorne Avenue in the middle of the hood. And again, telling the story that in this place that is not supposed to see excellence, that we are producing excellence every single day. So to see that, hey, this is one of the best delis in the state, right? And one of the oldest restaurants in the city, that a part of that continuum is that you're not in business for 80 years or more by luck. Luck is part of it, but you have to have some form of excellence that keeps people coming in your door. You have to be a fixture in the community through all the things that we've been through. It's not only about the rebellion, it's being in that community in the middle of the 80s, when everybody has basically written our death certificate as a city. And then coming back, no pun intended for the Phoenix around the corner from University High School, but we can rise and be born again and show people that there is excellence in our community. And that's really what we're trying to do with our new restaurant, as well as providing a space for us, which again, as a part of cooperative economics, is that we have to create safe spaces for us. If this is a safe, Haven as a city, it has to trickle down all the way to our blocks and the things that are fixtures on our blocks and within our community. So in terms of where I got the money to start, I just told you that I work for the city, so I didn't come from a lot of money. My parents were activists and public service as well. And but part of what I did that I think everybody should do is wherever you go, I think you should have a good name because you don't know how something's going to come back to you. My parents always instilled that in me so that when you go into City Hall, you speak to everyone. You greet everyone. You say good morning. You say goodbye. You say please. You say thank you. And because of that, I was able and fortunate enough to find people that would invest in me, whether or not they were friends and family or they were other people. But that's how we started. And like Zanetta mentioned, always having good credit, having good relationship with your bank. Just because you have a savings account, you should ask City, Industrial Bank about their mortgages. You should ask Industrial Bank about their auto loans. You should ask Industrial Bank about credit cards. You should, support those that support you in all ways, right? So that it has to be circular. Cooperative economics means that we're cooperating as a circular unit and not just linear, right? So we know that there is a big problem in our community about the circulation of dollars. We try to do as much to keep that money circulating within our community before it's expelled, right? And then, I'm sorry, one of the other questions is, well, that's getting into the other question, which is why is it important to support, our economic development? I was at the table, not bragging or boasting, but being one of the younger people at the table, right? And then also being one of the people, even though this is a predominantly Black and brown city, one of the only people that looked like me at the table when things like the Haynes building was being discussed, the ShopRite that's being discussed, the redevelopment of Market Street, Teachers Village, and all of those different things. You have to create your own seats at the table. My father famously tells me this story about how I believe with actually Mr. Powell, who rest in peace, passed away a year ago. They were talking about floating bonds. I think City National at the time may have been involved in that deal as well, about how the city of Newark and the Board of Ed was floating bonds for new school construction or something else. And when he got to the table, he noticed that he was the only person that looked like him at the table. So he went to the banker and he said, hey, where are all the brothers and sisters at? And the banker turned around and told him, they're not here because you didn't bring them. So when you are discussing matters of your own community, your own projects, your own self-determination, your own value system, you have to ensure that those that protect, respect, and reciprocate your dedication are at the table as well. And that's something that I wholeheartedly believe in. And that's really my story and what we're practicing and preaching, hopefully on a daily basis. I've always preached that City National, now Industrial, have been or should be a larger part of our community as it relates to everything that goes from our small businesses or to residents to large industries, the school board, the city, everything from construction bonding to mortgage lending. That should be the one-stop shop where we should be focusing a lot of our attention. And I think that's a good segue to Willie, who's going to talk more about the banking industry. Thank you again for allowing me to be here and asking me, Dr. Ma'at. Thank you.
Great. Kai, thank you for that introduction. And Zanetta, I appreciate all of your expertise as well. I had some information that I was going to share. However, we have this esteemed panel, and I can say for one thing, I am a student equally as much as I'm providing the information to you as well. Again, I am Willie Blalock. I'm the Senior Vice President and Market Manager for Industrial Bank for the tri-state area. And as Kai mentioned before, I was employed at City National Bank as well. And City National Bank was actually founded right here in the beautiful city of Newark, New Jersey. And we were fortunate enough to be acquired by another African-American bank out of Washington, DC, which is Industrial Bank. So we are now just entering into our first year. Industrial is entering into this market. And I say that because without any question, being an African-American owned and operated financial institution, we are looked upon as a small business as well. If you look at the broad range of banks and the actual assets of banks, we are a very small business compared to the banks that are actually out there. We're currently about $600 million in assets. And based upon our asset side, that limits what we can lend, how much we can lend, and what we actually do, which is actually fine with me because our forte at Industrial Bank is the small business owner and banking the underbanked and the underserved. And I truly live by that. A little bit about my background. I have worked for a few of the major financial institutions, did extremely well at one of them, and had a very nice, cushy job at one of them, sitting on the hill up in Garrett Mountain. So I won't mention what bank that is. However, I had an office looking out on New Jersey and had a portfolio of almost $100 million in assets of customers. And I'm sitting in my office one day and I realized out of the 67 or so customers that I had, only 3 looked like me or I could truly relate to. And what that actually means is out of the 67, I had 1 African-American client in corporate banking, 1 Asian, and 1 Latino. All of the rest of the clients were Caucasian. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what satisfied you. However, it was not fulfilling. So at that time, I decided to do something else. And a friend of mine was taking over City National Bank and asked would I be willing to come over to support the African-American institution that's here in Newark. So I jumped at the opportunity and here I am 10 years later, still doing the exact same thing. Zanetta and Kai mentioned a lot of things, so I'm going to truly throw my notes away and just discuss and talk about the things, enhance the things that they talked about earlier. Without any question, we have a few things here that we all can actually share, and that is everyone is struggling or have struggled at some time or another. And that's not to say that, you know, it is difficult all the time. And what folks need to truly remember is that whatever is happening right now is only temporary. And I say that to all of the customers as well, because when we talk to people about financial situations and different types of things, they really have to realize that knowing that this present is temporary will at least give you some faith and some hope. And that equally means what's going on here in the city with the pandemic and all of the other stuff that's actually going on. We truly have an opportunity here. And I say that for being in the city, knowing what we have here, we should be capitalizing on all of the things that are actually happening here in the city. We should not have to wait for others to tell us how wonderful this city is. We have all the dynamics right in front of us. I mean, location, location, location is the first thing in real estate. So you have a city that has, you know, major airports, 3 or 4 major airports that you can get to within 30 to 45 minutes at any given time without traffic, of course. You have trains, you have rails, you have even the sea. You can get on ships and go different places. So we have everything that's actually right here. And we have to realize that. So what we have, a lot of other individuals realize that and have been taking advantage of it for a long time. What we have to collectively do, and it's great that we're having this conversation today because collective work and responsibility, self-determination, cooperative economics, all of that stuff actually plays right into what we should be doing, not only during Kwanzaa, but every single day. Look at what we've contributed or what we can contribute to those 7 principles. And if we continue to work by those ethics, live by those ethics, treat people by those ethics, I can tell you that we'll all be in a better place. And I say that because when Zanetta talked about her insurance agency and doing different things, and I can say even being in this industry, I am at fault sometime as well, because we don't make it a conscious effort to continue to keep our folks in business. And when I say our folks in business, we are the largest consumers. We buy a whole lot, and power is in numbers. And we have to realize that. If you walk around different cities, different countries, folks are always mimicking what we do. We start a lot of things and have it taken right away from us. We have got to realize that there is opportunity. Everyone has some type of special talent. And if we hone in on those talents, we would be better collectively. One thing that I see in the financial industry that we should be looking at doing a lot more of is planning and making sure that we have a direct goal or focus on what we're actually doing, and keep that focus in mind in everything that we do, in the contacts that we actually make and the decisions that we actually make, what we actually do to certain people, how we actually go about our day-to-day business. We need to plan that. When I see a lot of folks come to a bank, and I kid you not, we have people who call in to say, look, I woke up this morning and had an epiphany that I need to open a new business. I need $100,000 to start a business. And the first question that I say to them is, well, have you ran a business before? No. Well, do you know anything about running this business? No, but I buy a lot in that kind of, and that's all good and well, but you have to have some type of expertise in what you're actually doing. I say to folks all the time, we are a full service commercial financial institution. So there's a few things that we all need to do before you come to a bank, before you come to a business, before you start to move forward on anything, is have all of your ducks in order and make sure you have answers to potential questions that you may be asked. You know, for example, where are you getting the seed money to start this business? I, as a banker, am not going to give you 100% to start a business, because what do you have to lose if in the event that the business does not go well? And you have to realize that you have to have some skin in the game. And that's what we actually look for. But you also have to, as Zanetta mentioned, you have to have your credit in order. And I tell folks all the time, I may not be able to help you, but I definitely won't hurt you. I could at least provide you with some advice as to where you need to go so that you can at least move forward to the next step, if this is not only your dream, but also your passion. We need to look at a few things. I mentioned planning, but insurance is extremely important, not only in your business life, but also in your professional life, but also in your personal life as well. So many of us, you know, look at the community to support us in times of needs, especially when it comes to burials and things of that nature. We should not put that burden. I say to folks all the time, you know, wealthy people leave, you know, wealth and estates. We inherit debt from our family members and different types of things. So we have got to change that. We really need to look at generating some wealth based upon what is actually around us. And if we look at the city itself, and even some of the folks that are on the call, if you determine how much you're paying in rent, you would be surprised at what that rent could actually go towards purchasing a home. That's not to say that you're going to get a home in Alpine, New Jersey, or Short Hill, New Jersey, for that matter. But we have plenty of homes in our communities, in Newark and Irvington and East Orange and the surrounding areas. And, you know, Brooklyn is kind of out of the market now because just the cost of things. However, if you're in the New York market, there's still some decent buys that you can get periodically in the Harlem and Queens and in the Bronx and different areas and boroughs. I say to folks all the time, if you have the opportunity, buy the worst house in the best neighborhood that you can possibly get. And do a little at a time. Sweat equity goes a long way in building some type of wealth and some type of money in the actual property that you currently have. Learn how to do, and in this video age, you can go to YouTube and learn how to do anything at any time. I'm not saying install plumbing and do electrical work, but you can learn how to lay tile. You can learn how to put down a floor. You can learn how to do sheetrock, paint, anything that there is to do out there to a home. You can actually learn how to do it. The beautiful thing about owning the home is it is yours to do with whatever you like. You don't have to get permission from a landlord. You may have to get permits, of course, but at least you are actually investing in yourself. So the first thing that anyone can do is look at how much you're paying for rent on a monthly basis. Look at what programs that are out there for you, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. You know, you can get into a home for as little as 2.5% down. There are programs that we can put you into that you can actually get some counseling around budgeting and different types of things. Know also what you're getting into, because it is going to be strenuous at times and hectic at times, but know that you're working for yourself to build some type of equity for you and your family. And something to pass down. Talk about, we need to have these conversations early. And that's, I think, the misconnect for a lot of us. When we were young, we didn't have these conversations with our parents, or grandparents did not have the conversation with our parents, and we didn't have that conversation with our parents also. So we missed a few generations there, but it's never too late to start. You know, children need to start by realizing that there is values and consequences to things that are actually done. You know, iPhones just don't show up. You know, mommy or daddy has to work a certain amount of hours. And if we have to work a few hours for it, you know, then maybe they should have to work a few hours for it. Nothing is actually given. Someone has to, and nothing is actually free. Whatever we get, someone has to pay for. You may not be the person who's paying, but someone had to pay for it. And that iPhone to a kid, mom and dad had to put in some hours at work. You know, those toys or whatever it is in this holiday season, someone had to work for it. And folks have to realize that and have to understand that there is a value associated with it. You know, and guess what? There are a lot of folks that are out there that are a lot more unfortunate than we are. So we really need to realize that at any given time, you know, this is temporary. I may not have it today, but guess what? And then we also have to determine if in fact it is truly a need or a want. You know, I want a Bentley, but I may just need a Honda to get me back and forth to work. You know, that's the difference between, you know, and both of them will do the same job. And folks also have to realize that, you know, with vehicles, there's depreciation that's actually there. You know, I'll be the first to say I am a car lover, but cars are a drain on assets. In most cases, they're depreciating in value. And if you're not paying on them, you're paying, you know, if you're not paying for them, you're paying on them in terms of repairs and different types of things. So you have to look at it that way. And do you have the ability to do it? Can I afford one? Maybe yes. But do I need to pay $800 for an oil change? Or do I need to learn how to change the oil myself if I had a vehicle that was more economical? But, you know, and I have friends, and I have been there as well. And I tell folks all the time when they're sitting in front of me, I am telling you things from experience. You know, so when I talk to you about credit, don't think that just because I am a banker, my credit was always perfect. You know, I was out there with the mortgage boom as well and bought everything in sight and that type of stuff. And then when the bubble burst, I had all of these properties that I had to do things with. So there's always situations. I say learn by my mistakes and learn by other folks' mistakes. There's nothing wrong with telling people that you need help or asking for help. And we fail to do that often. We really need to hone in on experts, ask questions, as many questions as possible. The way to learn how to do something is also always have a mentor. You know, if in fact you're in catering, you know, hey, maybe it's okay to volunteer. You know, I am sure that in the restaurant business and that kind of stuff, and Kai, correct me if I'm wrong or whatever, there are millions of things to learn. You see people opening up the business and closing the business, and you think they're just sitting at a register collecting money. No one knows about the prep that goes into it. The days that the restaurant is closed, that you're buying the food and you're interviewing employees and different types of things. Learn the business before you decide that that's the business that you want to go into. And sometimes learning and getting knowledge may not necessarily mean getting paid for it, you know, or it does mean getting paid for it, but it's the way you look at getting paid for it. My definition of getting paid for it is I may have to volunteer at the insurance company to learn how to sell insurance in order to have an agency. But guess what? At the end of the day, how much did it cost me? It may have cost me time, but I did not have to cough out money to learn, you know, the ins and outs of the insurance business. Now, there may be some tests and some different types of things that are involved, but at least you get the basics and you get to learn if it's your true passion. Credit, I tell folks all the time, the same bad credit that you bring to me or that you have at that white bank, when you come over to the black bank, that's the same credit that I'm looking at. So instead of giving you the loan, let's talk about what's on that credit report and what you need to do to get it corrected. You know, so let's start with the basics, start there. You know, wills, we truly need to make sure we plan for our demise. Everyone will have a judgment day. So the sooner we plan for it, and yes, it's a little morbid planning for it, but guess what? It's very difficult and very stressful on the people that we leave behind, all right? We also need to also have fun while we're doing it. I say, you know, I was fortunate enough to have, you know, and I don't know if my sisters are watching or not because I get on them all the time. I come from a family of mainly women, and I was fortunate enough to have some extremely wise women around me giving me advice all the time. Some of you who know me know that I have 5 amazing sisters and a mom who was just dynamic, and a grandmother who was wiser than the years that I could imagine. And we learned those things from our elders after the fact. My grandmother was always telling me, you know, wise stories and tales and different types of things. And you don't realize that those stories added into life experiences and different types of things. And as I grow older, I realized that some of the things that she was saying, wow, this is what she meant. You know, if I only knew that back then, what I knew now, or had the ability to talk to them, to ask additional questions and different types of things, I would be in a lot better place. We really have to put in the effort to get done what we need to get done. Too many people sit back expecting other people to do things for them. We're not, you know, guaranteed anything in this world, but what I can guarantee you, doing nothing in most cases will get you nothing. So we really have got to be, and especially in these times, it's going to be very difficult without any question. 2020 has been challenging for all of us. 2021 is coming, but we have a lot of things, especially on the financial side, that we need to look at. We have these individuals who have been deferred. I'm looking at it from a banker's perspective. We have customers who borrowed money who could not pay. So what we did as a financial institution is we provided deferments for these individuals and said, okay, we're going to give you 6 months without payments, and then looked at it again and maybe give them another 2 months without payment. But all of that period is going to be over, and not only over for Industrial Bank, but over for some other financial institutions as well. So what is going to happen at the end of 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, when now the mortgage has to be paid? And without any question, we can defer your principal and interest, but guess what? If you own a building or a home, you still have to pay taxes. You still have to pay insurance. So although you may not have made a payment, those things are still due. So if you haven't paid taxes in 6 months or 9 months, do you think the city or any city is going to say you no longer have to pay us taxes? You know, the city has a budget as well, so you have to take that under consideration. We need to start planning on what we're going to do. There's a lot of homes that are going to be on the market. There's a lot of businesses. Not only have there been a lot of businesses that have closed, but there are going to be a lot more that are going to continuously close based upon this pandemic. What we need to collectively do is the ones who are here and who have been here in the community, first of all, make sure that we patronize them and support them as much as possible. I mentioned earlier how much we buy. You know, we go out of our way to do a lot of things that we want to do, but we need to start going out of our way to do things that we need to do, you know? And I say that wholeheartedly because it's very easy for us to go and buy, and we're, again, consumers of everything, but to get in a car, to consciously drive, to do business with folks that look like us, who are supporting us, is what we all need to do a lot more of, you know, including myself. And I am telling you this because we all need to make that conscious effort to do that all the time, all right? So I talked a little bit about how I started in the business. I was in corporate America and realized that, I was doing really well, but all of my friends and folks that I grew up with wasn't doing as well as I was doing. And instead of being the ATM machine for a lot of my friends and folks, I decided, why don't I go into an industry to, learn and to bring some people in to help. If you've been and visited into our locations, you would realize that the people that we hire in banking look like the communities that we actually are in and that we serve. And we give folks opportunities to excel and to grow and to learn. But we want to hire people who want to be here. I don't want to do business with anyone who don't want to do business with me. And that's okay. And it's also okay to tell folks, we tolerate a lot, but we need to also go where we're appreciated and not just where we're tolerated. So many of us go to places because of the name. Prime example, I'll give you one of the examples for me. Neiman Marcus. Years ago, I was in Neiman Marcus in Short Hill Mall. I go there just because it was Neiman Marcus in some cases and that kind of stuff. And they have a lot of stuff that I like. The young lady at the counter, I asked for something. The young lady said to me, I don't know if you really want to see that because that's very expensive. Now, I'm observing her serving someone else. They never told the other person that the things were expensive. They were just showing them things. But when it came to me, I was just told, maybe you don't want to see that because it's expensive, So what I did was, being a little somewhat arrogant and a little upset as well, I asked to see it. I purchased that and purchased 4 or 5 other things. And then I asked the young lady to go get a manager. And then I returned everything at that same moment to let her know that, we are not all here to steal from you or not. And everyone, just because I have on jeans and a baseball cap doesn't necessarily mean that we can't afford things, and we should be treated like everyone else is treated. But I also have to realize is, why was I there in the first place? Just because the label that I was purchasing, or was it because I needed that, or just because I wanted that? So I asked myself, what role did I actually play in standing there being treated a certain way? And that's what we have to ask each other. And that's not to say that we shouldn't go different places and that kind of stuff, because we should, but we should also take into consideration what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? Why is it important to support economic development? As I said, if we don't, who will? Folks are already scared to come. Well, not necessarily now, because if you look at the landscape of Newark, and you're seeing folks on the street jogging in the morning and doing different things. 10 or 15 years ago, it was a different story. If you look at Halsey Street, the buildings and the beautification of the Halsey and that project. Kai also mentioned, Teachers Village and things like that and that kind of stuff. All of those properties, it's unfortunate because there were restaurants on Bradford Place and everywhere else. And when it came time for developing that whole area, all of those restaurants and those businesses that all of those folks of color owned, when it came for the economic development of those areas, we did not own any of those buildings. So we had to move all of those businesses off of that boulevard, as opposed to selling those properties for the redevelopment. So that's what we have to really start thinking about, and how we actually do that and what we actually do. There was a question that someone had about not having a lot of money and how they become micro investors. Partner with some friends who are like-minded. First thing that I can say is, even if you can't afford a home, but if you're renting, you'll be surprised. Get a 2-family home and have someone subsidize the rent. You live in one apartment, you rent the other apartment, and that rent could go towards that actual mortgage and you can subsidize it. It's the same thing with investing. Get like-minded individuals. You don't need a whole lot of money to invest. If you have 4 people, 5 people, get small investment groups. Start talking to people about what you want to do. And not only, but invest in our community. We also have to support not-for-profit organizations as well. We're quick to go to places like the Atlantic Cities and things like that and that kind of stuff. But we have some jewels right in our backyard. If we look at, Sympathy Hall, NJPAC, the Newark Library, support not only, and that's not to say that you can't go to Broadway when Broadway opens back up, but we have some great programs and things that are going on right in our city that we should not only, first of all, they're great programs, but secondly, we should actually be visiting and patronizing these places as well so that they know and bring people who can actually afford. You know, I may not be able to afford it, but guess what? I'm sure everyone knows someone who can donate. It mentioned, you know, a $75 membership or something like that. So bring someone who can afford it. That's the kind of stuff that we actually collectively need to do to support one another. All right. How banks can help, and I'll talk briefly for another minute or so, and then I'll let Dale take over, but how we can actually help. We are a community commercial bank. So in most cases, all of our customers are small business owners. The vast majority of our portfolio are small business owners. And we hear a lot about, you know, Bank Black and the Black Lives Matter movement and things like that. What I can tell you is that Bank Black initiative hurt banks more than it helped Black banks of color. Because what actually happened is we received drones of customers opening up $100 accounts saying that they bank Black. And what that actually does is there's a cost associated to accounts like that. We have to realize is we have to mail out statements, we have to send out cards, we have to send out disclaimers. So on an annual basis, that $100 account may be costing a bank $110 over a year or two to actually have that account on our books, because we have regulators that we have to provide information to. So if you truly want to support Black financial institutions, is, you know, whole relationships, holistic relationships. As Kai said, if you're borrowing, if you're buying a car, if you're buying a home, if you're starting a business, and not only from the financial perspective of borrowing and depositing, but also utilize us as resources to provide you with information for people who can help you. There's so many small not-for-profit organizations that provide a lot of the services that small business owners need for free or for discounts. And also there's services that out there that you can barter for. You know, you may not be able to pay for an attorney, but guess what? You can volunteer at an attorney's office to do some filing or whatever else it is so that you can get a letter drafted or a will made up or something like that. So there's different ways to pay and to compensate. We just need to realize that, and we need to capitalize on it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you ever so. I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that this is being recorded, because this was just a wealth of information, and you'll be able to review this perhaps tomorrow, surely by later on in the week. We have a couple of questions, but one question for all panelists. We have a congratulations from one of our community partners, Newark Arts, and congratulations to Friends of Jabbar and Dr. Ma'at for this outstanding panel. Zanetta, Kai, and Willie are business leaders who understand the value of community service. Thank you to them. How do they balance their work as business people with giving back? And that's for all of you.
I'll jump in there. So one of the things I did when I was owning my business in Newark, obviously, people like Kai, you know, doing business, and they were very supportive of me being an African-American and a woman business owner. I made sure that if there were things that I was doing in the community, I supported other businesses, whether they were doing business with me or not. But community service, one of the things that drove me, and one of my passions are children. So a lot of things I did in the community were geared towards what another passion I had of. I come from a big family. My mom is one of 15. My dad's one of 10. So God knows I've seen it all, from financial disasters to the impacts of poor decision-making financially from adults that impact children. And so, you know, one of the things I made sure I spent my time on was children. The second one is obviously good financial planning. One of the things our community suffers a lot of is just lack of understanding. So, you know, when I talk about choosing Newark, my husband grew up here in the city of Newark. And so, you know, I, again, tried to pick to a community that was very similar to what I grew up in. So a lot of times, events like this, most people in the city of Newark have heard me come and speak with no potential of financial gain. I try to align my passions of what my business were. But I also was a tough cookie. There's a lot of people asking me as a small business owner to give. I am a small business owner. I was not State Farm. That's the brand. And then there's ZB Glover Insurance and Financial Services, Inc. And I had to make that clear. And sometimes our expectations of our business owners is to continue to give and not understand we are in business. We are small business owners. And so after a while, I was like, I'm not just giving out money here. I am a business owner. So I had to start to draw lines in the sand where if it wasn't in alignment with my passion, those two things, financial information and helping children, I then had to decide, is this something that is in alignment with my business and where's the return on my investment? And that's where we need to be smarter about what decisions we're making and where we're going to give our money. I need to make sure what I put in this business is also returning to my family. And I used to say this to my employees too. I can't starve my family to feed your family. I am truly about building wealth from generation to generation. And it was not through just insurance. I did investment planning. I am a financial advisor. So I would talk about the importance of saving, and that is one way to get there. The other way to get there is obviously through estate planning and life insurance. And I know we hate to talk about that, but one of the most tragic things I see today out of this COVID thing is all those people kept saying, I'm not gonna die. I'm like, yeah, you're going to die. Let's be clear. Nobody wants to talk about that discussion, but you know what? I wanna live to see my grandchildren. I wanna be there for my daughter's children. But one thing I'm clear on is if I'm not, I have a financial plan that there will be wealth for her, there will be wealth for my grandchildren. That is not even a question. So what I worry about is seeing the future, but what I don't worry about is, are they gonna be okay financially? One key point I wanna bring up is in our community, not only we lack recirculation of our money, but the sad part is when we retire, we come out of poverty in our community because we are now collecting Social Security. That is a sad place to say that our community is. And granted, we've had some hard economic struggles, but we've also made some poor financial decisions. The second sad thing that the census brought out in our community, the average inheritance that our children inherit is $2,000. Most communities, not much better, but it's $20,000 and it's 10 times as much as what we're leaving behind. That got our children to next week. I'm asking you to think long and hard about what you're spending that money on, and don't assume things are not affordable, but ask the questions and prioritize those things for your children and your grandchildren. We cannot make good political and social influences about our community. 70% of the Newark community is renting, to Willie's point. And one of the key things I used to say to my clients is, you're renting and you're renting next door. Your children are right next door to you. Make sure, I don't want you to move out of the city of Newark. I want you to own the home in Newark. And when we talk about who's having influence in the city of Newark, the people paying taxes are the people who have influence. I would have clients come down to me and say, oh, it's City Hall and all this. I'm like, reality is, are you paying taxes? That's where the influence is. And we need to have those real discussions about where influence comes from. And it is the economic, and we need to do a better job of that. And we're not talking big money, we're talking about disciplined money.
Could we have maybe closing comments from Kai and Willie, and then we have a dance video to show? Kai, closing comments?
Sure. I mean, if you wanted me to comment on the.
Oh, you may on either, sure.
Well, so in terms of so much, I guess in our community is, we talk about giving back, and to me, I like to give it forward a little bit. Not that giving back is the wrong way to look at it, but I'm a futurist at heart, and with 2 young children and, nieces and nephews that are in various ages. One of the things Willie talked about having a mentor. We talk about how to align our resources. So for me, it's giving it forward, right? So if I put everything out and I say, hey, listen, I'm going to make sure that I contract with, a young sister that is a plumber, right? I'm gonna take a leap of faith with her. If people have come up to me like, hey, my son or my daughter wants to become a chef, I'm like, well, should they go to culinary school? Well, why don't they come and have an internship in the kitchen? Let's see how their knife skills are. Let's work on their knife skills. Let's make sure that they're doing the dishes when they're at home, right? All of these things that we need to be more futuristic in our approach. And that's part of what Zanetta is talking about planning for a future. Willie talked about that. But it's also ensuring that right now we're on solid footing and that, a lot of our community, I mean, Newark has been especially hit hard by, not living in our own fiefdoms, right? This is a circular, hopefully, community. It's a vital and a healthy community. And if we're giving forward, all of those blessings are going to come back to us, in my opinion, right? We need to become, as a part of, Ujamaa, we need to become more circular in nature and not more linear. And I think that sometimes when we give back, we're not teaching people how to fish. We're just giving them the fish. And not that sharing my meal, because everybody, on our team knows that when we have a family meal, and sometimes I won't eat fries so that somebody else can eat fries or something like that. But a lot of it is like, hey, listen, in any little way, we have to ensure that how we do things is about the betterment, the health, and vitality of our community. Not so that we're just getting by, but that we're flourishing and that we're, experiencing the abundance that, like Willie said, we have a lot to spend. We have a lot of power, and we need to make sure that that remains, a part of the forefront of our consciousness, not just as something that we've done. Hey, here's, like, I'm not going to start preaching anything, but tithing is an active verb, right? And so much a part of our community is about passive tithing. We need to become much more active in our giving.
Thank you. Willie, would you like to talk about giving back or closing comments, and then we'll turn it back to Dr. Ma'at?
Great.
Thank you.
Well, a couple of things. Giving back, and as Zanetta mentioned, because we are a bank, folks think that there's a printing press in the back office somewhere, and we can just print money out and give. But giving back, as Zanetta's mentioned, and as Kai also mentioned, is also you shouldn't expect to get anything without giving something yourself. And as Kai said, I mentioned earlier, whatever, if you want to learn the ins and out of running an establishment, a restaurant, or business, why not? Your give back would be the volunteer. Volunteer and learn how to, work the kitchen, work the grill, do those type of things. Learn from Zanetta, learn how to file, learn what the different vocabulary is in terms of the insurance industry and that kind of stuff. We all have the same amount of time. So no one has more than 24 hours in any given day. So it's what we do with that time. So what we really need to do is determine, are the people and what we're doing and spending our time on, is it worth the time that we're spending, truly? To sit in front of a TV and watch reality shows for 3 hours, 4 hours, or 5 hours per week, and then get around a group of folks and have a discussion about what we don't have, maybe we should and that's not to say that you shouldn't do that if that's what you want to do, but maybe we can do it. Everything can be done in moderation. Instead of 4 hours, maybe we can cut it down to 2 hours and do something maybe a little more productive in getting you to where you actually need to be. A lot of the time that I spend and my staff and the crew spend is volunteering, going out and talking to people about not only what they have, but the condition that they're currently in and what they can do to make not only their condition, but their community a lot better. So I'm more than willing at any time to talk to anyone, to go out to groups, to talk to them about, how to buy that first home, how to buy an investment property, what to actually do to improve credit, put you in touch with some of the organizations like the Invest Newarks and some of the other organizations that are actually out there that are here to support small business owners and getting entrepreneurs actually on their feet. You have GNEC. There's so many different organizations that are just out there that you can go to and get classes and some tutorial for free or little or nothing. Those are the things that, the places and the people that I'm around. You have the arts that is extremely important. You have Newark Arts that is amazing in what they actually do in the actual community. And art is an outlet for a lot of folks. You paint, draw, sing, do whatever you love and mix it in and, find a way to make money maybe doing that. Or teaching. If you're very good at art, then go somewhere and teach other folks how to do art. My thing is finance. So I can go to people and I can talk to people about some of the things that I've done for them not to do. And that's what we should all be focusing in on. So my volunteer efforts is more around letting people know some of the mistakes that I actually made, some of the hurdles that they can go around as opposed to having to go through to get them where they need to be. And I think not only myself, but we've heard the other folks on the panel are more than willing to do that as well. And you just need to continue to support not only us, but one another and actually ask for help if it's actually needed. The worst case scenario is all you will get is a no. And guess what? You didn't have it in the first place, so you didn't lose anything. So go to someone else because eventually 5 no's, 10 no's will turn into 1 yes. And that's what you have to continuously look at. If it's your passion, don't stop until you get to where you need to be.
Okay. Dale, are you coming back? Oh, okay.
Yes, Dr. Mott, can you unmute yourself from your computer? I think that's why we have a little feedback. Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, it's somewhat better.
Okay.
Still in that
Thank you. We panelists, that was a wonderful presentation. Absolutely marvelous. We are going to walk away from this evening with so much more, and we have a special treat for you. We are going to have a dance performance. So most of you are already aware that in African culture, dance is very important. It is, every occasion is celebrated with a dance. I remember when I was in Zimbabwe, I was in a village and the men did a special tribute to the women in the village. They danced to thank the women for being good wives and good mothers. Well, the word Kwanzaa stands for the first harvest. And we have looked high and low to get some dance for you that would represent bringing in the harvest, because bringing in the harvest in the village was their understanding of community wealth, creating wealth for the community. And so we're gonna end our program tonight with some African dancing for you. We want to thank all of you again for joining us, and don't check out too soon. Don't forget to light your candle tomorrow for the 5th day, which is Nia, which means purpose. And until then, enjoy, be safe, and please stick around and watch the African dancing that we have, we're going to present to you now. Thank you again, and good night. Okay, I'm
That's it.
leaving. That's it. It is 7:18.
Oh, that wasn't bad. Not bad.
Joining us. Have a safe new year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I enjoyed it.
Yes.
I
Thank
thought
you.
it was pretty good.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Reggie.
Thank you, everybody. And please thank Alicia for that wonderful flyer.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Willie.
Yes.
Be
Thank
well.
you.
Happy New
Okay.
Year
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Thank
All right,
you.
be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, Kai. Be well.
Thank y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Take care. Good night. Thank you for joining.
Okay, good night.